Thank you for joining the 10th Annual Tribal Healing to Wellness Court Virtual Enhancement Training hosted by the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. You have joined session D3, entitled Community Coordination, Planning and Implementing the Tribal Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court, presented by Santana Bartholomew, Chaniel Grant, and Corissa Millard. I am Precious Benali. I am the Tribal Healing to Wellness Court Specialist with the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. I am joined by my co-moderator, Anna Clough, who serves as co-director for the Tribal Youth Resource Center and lead for training and technical assistance for Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. I am also joined by Laura Smith, program assistant for the Tribal Youth Resource Center at TLPI.
Thank you, Precious. And recordings will be available on enhancementtraining.org. Again, thank you all for joining us, and I'll now hand it over to Anna, who will be introducing our speakers for today's session.
Thank you, Laura. I'm very happy to be here. We have made it to Thursday in a great week of training available this year for the virtual enhancement training. So with that, yes, I am joining on behalf of the Tribal Youth Resource Center. We are funded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention through a cooperative agreement. And we are very happy to be here today with three sites that are actually funded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in C-Task Purpose Area 8. So a very long list of words, but thank you to these three wonderful giving of their time individuals who are joining today to talk about their communities and to give us a little bit of insight into the processes that they have walked through as part of planning and working toward implementation of a juvenile healing to wellness court. So Laura, you can go to the next slide. I'm going to quickly introduce our speakers, and then they are going to introduce themselves as we move through the presentation. But we have Santana Bartholomew, who is joining us from Pueblo, Pojoaque. She is the Youth Path to Wellness Coordinator. Chaniel Grant is joining us from the Blackfeet Tribal Court, and they have both an adult and juvenile healing to wellness court. And then Corissa Millard is joining us from the Quapaw Nation of Oklahoma. She is their court clerk, and she is overseeing the grant, and they are working on planning and working toward implementation. So we have people that are in a few different places right now as far as coordination and working toward full implementation of the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. And then we're going to kind of walk through some questions that will highlight the adaptability of the tribal 10 key components. So I'll let each of the speakers introduce themselves as we move into a community highlight, but just wanted to say thank you to all of them for giving their time today, and we look forward to having a conversation with them. So today we are talking about the Wellness Court framework and the fact that the components are adaptable to fit many different communities. So it's based off the tribal 10 key components. We're going to be looking at those today and looking at how that framework can be adaptable to pretty much any community based on the unique strengths and needs of that community. And we're just going to compare and contrast the court structure and how it might look between these three communities, and then take a look if you're interested in developing a wellness court or if you already have a juvenile healing to wellness court in your community, what those differences might be and in what ways there are similarities, and then in what ways your community has had to adapt processes differently based on local resources or local lack of resources. So just want to walk through that today and share a little bit from communities. We know that those of you who are working with the youth directly are the experts. You know and understand what your community needs and what your youth are going through. And so love hearing from community members as these processes are being implemented in the development of the court. So I know we have looked at the 10 key components in almost every session that we've done this week, and we wanted to just continue to highlight the framework that we're going by as we look at the development of a wellness court. I think in looking at the framework, we know that these components have been around for nearly 2 decades. The components were initially based on the drug court framework, and then the tribal group came together and looked at how the 10 key components could be adapted specifically for tribes. And so it was for tribal communities interested in developing and establishing healing to wellness courts. The group that came together to develop the components were from a diverse group of practitioners. These components are, while they are derived from drug court components, there were special considerations given for the unique needs of Native nations. I think it's important for us to continue to recognize that all of the components are aspirational. Generally, they describe best practices. They look at designs and implementation that might be, here's the best or aspirational way we would want this to happen. But I think that across the board, everyone recognizes that there are local needs, local strengths that are going to change the way that this framework might be adapted to meet the needs of the community. Especially the fact that each tribe is unique in culture and tradition. And since that is a major component of the Healing to Wellness Court, we know that that particular component is going to be unique to each tribal community. When we talk about the development of the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court, we are looking at the Wellness Court framework, but then adding an additional layer, which is focusing on how do we specifically meet youth's needs in looking at this framework. And so yesterday, if you were able to participate in that session, we specifically talked about youth development and the need to appropriately respond to youth needs, and that includes developmentally appropriate responses. That is going to include a high level of parent and caregiver engagement, team-oriented processes to provide referral for youth into locally available services, and then identification of therapeutic processes and responses that are going to meet those individual youth needs. As well, in the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court, there's still the ongoing integration of tribal custom and teachings, mentors, leaders, elders, and others who may come in as part of your wellness court programming to support those youth who are coming in as participants. Today, we are going to have each of our speakers introduce themselves and then share a little bit about their community. And then we are going to walk through a discussion, and each one of them will share a response. And if you have questions or you would like to chat, please feel free to do that throughout the session. We will pause intermittently for questions, but we want to make sure that we have time for all the speakers to share. So with that, I'm going to let Corissa get started and share a little bit about the Quapaw Nation of Oklahoma and where they're at as far as planning, and then we'll move to the next speaker after that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Corissa Millard. I am the court clerk for the Quapaw Nation Tribal Courts. We are in the process of planning. We just recently had our juvenile codes accepted by our business committee last month. So we've got those started. Then we're also starting a process of getting forms ready as well for how we're going to be able to take in juveniles throughout our program, because we want to be able to do a couple different things and do 2 different phases for them in order for them to be in our court system.
So can you tell us a little bit about where the Quapaw Nation is located and approximately how many members you have in your tribe?
Yeah, so we are actually at the far northeast corner of Oklahoma. Our border runs with the state of Kansas and state of Missouri. We actually have a casino that sits on all 3 state lines. Right now, we approximately have 5,500 tribal members in Quapaw and then throughout the United States.
And I know that you all recently went through a development of your court. So can you share a little bit about your court building and some of the programs that are located in that building?
Yeah, we recently opened in September of 2019 our Quixota Center, which stands for, the meaning is wellness behind it. In this particular building, we hold all of the court staff and hold all of our court dockets here. Across the hall from me, we actually hold our family services department, which deals with our ICWA cases. We have a special sexual advocate, a domestic violence advocate. We now have a supervised visitation advocate. We also have a youth program that is also within that department as well. Across at the other end of the building, because it's about a 17,000 square foot building, at the end of the other side of the building is our Quapaw counseling services. Within that department, they do counseling, ADSAC, SAP, they have a methadone clinic, and they do parenting classes and other forms of counseling as well.
So I know that the coordination of those services and planning out your new judicial center was a little previous to your wellness court, but I know that we've talked about how well all of those services being integrated are going to play into your wellness court.
Yes, one of the first things we did once we got into the building and we knew that we were going to have a wellness court, we actually got all of the departments together to specifically see which of them would be able to help us and how they would be able to help us. So we were able to get a good idea of what programs we could use and which ones we couldn't use. There's a lot of programs that are within our building. I mean, they're gonna, on the counseling side, they'll be able to do our UA testing. And then we have 2 different locations where we can do parenting classes if we want to do those. So that was a major thing about making sure that all these departments that were in this building would have be able to help in one way or another.
Thank you. So we're going to get a little bit more deep into how to coordinate services, but I'm going to go to the next slide. Corissa shared a few photos of their judicial center and some of the rooms that have been updated. And then we will let Santana share about her community.
Hi, everyone. My name is Santana Bartholomew. I'm the coordinator for the Youth Path to Wellness in the Pueblo of Pojoaque. We're located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're about like 25 minutes north of Santa Fe, but still in Santa Fe County. So yeah, we have a small Pueblo. We have about 550 tribal members. One thing about us though is we really do have strong leadership in our community. We're small, but you know, we have a pretty good economy. We have a couple of casinos and definitely like businesses that we own. And so we're able to give our youth like the opportunity to go to, you know, attend private schools. Like we can give scholarships. We have a higher education program. So we definitely are making those efforts to try to give our youth opportunities, but we still, I think, are running into, you know, some other issues when it comes to having the youth kind of create those genuine bonds and connections with their elders. And really like with our culture. So yeah, it's a great community though. I love it.
I know, and I know that it's like doing introductions, but also sharing a little bit about the communities. I know on the next slide we have a few pictures of your community, and I know that you've shared in the past the relationship with your local school providers, and now that is going to be a primary kind of referral process for your court. And so I didn't know if you wanted to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, we really started to meet with the local public school, Pojoaque Valley schools, because they have, I mean, it's a big school, and that's where many of the youth from the surrounding areas even go to. So, and there are a lot of tribal youth that attend that school from other surrounding tribes. So the Pueblo of Pojoaque, we're kind of surrounded by a lot of little like sister tribes. We share common like traditions and common ancestors and everything like that. So it has been great working with the school. We have hit a roadblock though with the COVID and the kids not actually physically attending school. And so, you know, everything's been on Zoom, but we have been sitting in on the school board meetings and just getting involved, trying to make those connections with the superintendent. It is hard because they are busy people, but it's been a really valuable partnership to have. So I do recommend getting involved with your schools, definitely.
Thank you. And now I'm going to have Chaniel introduce herself and then share a little bit about where she is joining from.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chaniel Grant. I'm the coordinator for the Blackfeet Juvenile and Adult Healing to Wellness Courts in Browning, Montana. Our reservation's right up against the Canadian border, kind of in the northern part of Montana. We're really rural. We are probably, I think, the closest kind of bigger city where the nearest Walmart and stuff is like 120 miles away. So we are really rural, but we are right next to the mountains and it's so beautiful here. And we have a lot of, right next to the Glacier National Park. It's a really large reservation, so there's lots of communities outside of Browning, which is kind of like our capital city. And the outside communities are kind of spaced out pretty far from us, maybe 30 miles away, 40 miles away. So we serve the entire reservation. Yeah, and our weather's pretty crazy here. If you guys we were in the news last year for our snow. I think we got like 8 feet of snow one time last year. So we're pretty rural. And I've been here for 4 years with the Healing to Wellness Court. We actually we were funded under Purpose Area 9 previously. We kind of hit a roadblock with that grant, but we did get one round of implementation going, so we kind of have that under our belt. One round of serving clients and actually getting to go through and have graduations. I think we had 9 graduates in our juvenile Healing to Wellness Court.
Thank you. I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about your court, and I know I haven't learned yet, but as far as like you're saying, you serve the whole community. Are there remote locations, or is there one central court location? So maybe share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we serve so there's different towns kind of spaced out on our reservation. We do serve the entire reservation. Our court is actually centralized in Browning, and the entire court staff is located in this building. Family court, defense, prosecution, our judges are there, so it's kind of like a central location. Our family court actually has been looking into having remote court out in Heart Butte, it's a smaller community that has high need. And you know, with our weather and stuff, it's hard for people to get into town from out there, and there's not a lot out there, so they are looking to go and have court hearings out there with family court and serving them.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you shared about weather, because I know we're talking about, you know, the circumstances everyone is in now and how there's had to be some major adaptability on continuing services with clients, but it looks like you guys already had some pre-existing things that would come up, including weather and people not being able to get into the court for other reasons. So I think just learning about some of the ways you all have dealt with that in the past will be helpful for people to hear. So we are going to move into our questions. And so what we did was develop some questions that reflect the 10 key components as a framework. And so each of our speakers is just going to share a little bit as we move through these. And then if our participants in this session today do have other questions, please feel free to send those, because we love the fact that we have some community members here that are sharing. So these are things that we came up with just to guide the session, but we would love to have other questions posed. So what were some of the issues arising among youth that led your community to develop the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court? And in what ways do you think the Wellness Court will contribute to your community's nation building? And I'm going to go back to Chaniel first, because she's kind of walked through this whole process. So I think she has some good insight to share with us, and then we'll go to Corissa and then Santana.
Thank you. So some of the issues that came up among our youth that led our community to develop our court were there was just, there wasn't a lot a lot of services. There was lots of prevention programs, but not a lot of aftercare, and a lot of kids were getting into trouble at school and having delinquency issues in school. There was a lot of substance use in kids. Probably alcohol and marijuana are the biggest substances of choice here. Just like MIPs, lots of status offenses, but just a lot of trauma. I know there was a study done by the Native Children's Trauma Center in Missoula, Montana. They actually did a survey here with our middle school students, and I think it was a huge percentage, if I'm not mistaken, 80% of our kids in that Browning Middle School met the criteria for high levels of trauma. So just figuring out ways to help kids that are dealing with these issues that, arise when they're in trauma were the biggest things. I think our wellness court contributes by we collaborate with so many people, and we're talking, and we're all like a unified front working together to help guide these kids, and using all of our unique strengths in each of our positions, and kind of breaking down those silos that have always kind of been here. Figuring out ways as a community and just being, partners in helping our youth.
Thank you. Corissa, do you want to share similar what issues were coming up with your youth, and then in what ways do you think that this court will contribute to Quapaw Nation's nation building?
Yeah, I have a unique perspective, I guess, because I came from the state courts, and I worked specifically in the delinquent department through the court clerk's office there. And we kind of saw these kids through the courts that really weren't getting the help that they needed. They were kind of just passed on from detention centers or mental health facilities, and nothing was really happening. And then once they aged out, they basically would go straight into the adult system. And then once I moved over here, there was a case that I had worked pretty closely with where the young woman who ended up committing suicide. So when this was brought to us, it was kind of one of those things of, I feel like we have more resources than the state sometimes has. Just within a building that, we're 17,000 square feet in, we can help with drug and alcohol abuse, or deal with the situations that they need. If the parents are needing some form of parenting class, or if they're needing counseling, kind of taking all of the things that we have within this building and kind of setting up these kids rather than to fail, but to actually know that there's resources out there. Because I think that's the biggest issue sometimes is, I know sometimes cases, get overloaded, and people can't always do what they need to do or want to do in certain situations, and their hands are kind of tied. But with this court, we have so many other opportunities and so many other places to send out resources and to help kids with.
So a great benefit of getting those kids moved over into the tribal court and getting those services and those resources available to them a lot quicker than if they stayed in the state court.
And that's our next goal, is to kind of meet with our district attorney's office and kind of say, what do we need to do to form some kind of MOU or government to government agreement that allows for you to go ahead and just refer them to our court system first. And let us kind of see what we can do. And if they're in your court system, is there any way that we can go ahead and start providing services through our, providers, to see if that would help, you guys out in the long run as well?
So Santana, what would you like to share about issues that were arising among youth, and then in what ways do you think the Wellness Court will contribute to your nation's building?
Yeah, so thanks. thinking about this question, you know, we have our own tribal court, and so in the past when we would have youth, you know, maybe getting in trouble with the law, and attending court and everything, they would get on probation. And so we were just seeing a lot of like recidivism with those individuals. It was kind of like, you know, they would keep coming back in or having, you know, they would just continue with the behavior. And so once we got our adult wellness court kind of up and running, I think the judge, you know, took the initiative to say, we need this for our youth as well, because not only do we need to, you know, give up drug tests and do our best to support them, but we really need to provide them with like holistic support. And so that was kind of bringing in myself and other team members and other clinicians to really provide them what we see, like a lack in pro-social, like really positive pro-social, like connection, because they are at school all day. And sometimes between the home and school, our youth just aren't getting like what they need, whether that's emotionally or just, that's kind of our job, that's kind of how I see my job, is like, what aren't they getting at home? What aren't they getting at school? Where can we help fill in those areas? Because we know that a youth coming to a court system, it can feel like the world is on top of you. It can feel like, oh great, now I have school and all these other things. And so we want to try to help them, you know, bridge that gap. We don't want to add more stuff, you know, onto their plate. At the same time, they are, you know, possibly committing crimes. And I think we learn a lot. We don't see a crazy amount of youth getting arrested. It's mainly like Corissa and Chaniel was saying, you know, from the schools, they're getting in trouble with, you know, smoking marijuana and possibly with alcohol, even like opioids sometimes. But when we look at the adults in our community who are struggling with like full-blown, you know, addiction or substance misuse, that dependency, I think we really want to work with the youth and see it as more like an intervention type thing, or early, like a prevention. So, because we don't say that, oh, our 15 and 16-year-olds are addicted to alcohol, or they don't have a substance dependency yet, but we just want to really like do everything in our power to provide them with, you know, that support that they need, so that they aren't going down that path that maybe their other family members have, or their mother, their father. So I think we did see it as like this, we need to be here for prevention purposes. And there's a huge lack, if I'm being honest, there's a huge lack of mentorship and just guidance for our youth in our community. So we want to do that work and be those, you know, like I want to be a mentor myself, and then also just find other people who are willing to do that work as well.
Thank you. So Laura, you can go to the next slide. So we can just kind of briefly touch on this, because I know we want to talk more specifically about the wellness court, but if you had previous initiatives in the community, are any of those being continued and will be included in the wellness court, or are there, what current resources are contributing to the development or implementation of the wellness court? So I will go to Corissa first.
So we actually have a couple of programs already going on right now that we're going to be adding into the wellness court. We actually have someone that actually has just a youth program where they kind of take kids that have kind of been in trouble or need counseling, and they provide during the summer, they provide like a summer camp for them. This year they got to go to Horses of Hope for 2 weeks. So I mean, that's something we definitely want to, that's being used right now, that we definitely want to bring onto the program as well.
Santana, are there other youth initiatives going on that you're going to bring into the wellness court, or previous initiatives that you guys have worked on?
Yeah, we have a Boys and Girls Club that's run by the Tribal Council here. And so we are doing everything we can to partner with them. And then we also have a Family and Children's Services department, kind of like a social services. They work with the whole family. And also there is a program called the Tewa Root Society that's from a neighboring Pueblo called Pueblo, and they are doing amazing work with, it's kind of like a youth council thing, so it isn't with youth who are necessarily involved with the courts, but it's just kind of building their confidence and their identity, sense of purpose, and community service. So we're definitely working with them as far as for building a pro-social program for our youth.
There was a few things going on in our community that kind of helped lead to this implementation piece of our program. There were there was a big push for trauma-informed care in our schools. So that led to them opening up like a school-based health clinic. And in that clinic, there is a LAC working in that building that provides counseling services. There's just been more resources popping up because of that initiative. There's an alternative high school now here for kids that are kind of struggling with probably trauma and just going through giving them an alternative to do school at their pace and helping them recover their credits. And I think they've seen great success in their graduation rate, and just being more flexible with those kids. I think it helped the schools be more flexible with their policy, and that really helped us get into partnerships with the schools and get MOUs signed. And just being strength-based, I think, helped our community learn that, there's other ways you can approach these delinquency issues, and just being more supportive rather than punitive is something that really helped us get going.
I know you mentioned the National Native Children's Trauma Center earlier, and so that work has kind of tied into the continued work of the Wellness Court. And I just wanted to quickly share that TYRC is still in partnership with them. So for anyone who's interested in learning more about the training and support that NNCTC offers, we can connect you all with those resources. So I didn't want to miss the opportunity to share that. So we can go to the next question, and it's almost in line with what we just went through. So what are some existing resources in the community that currently or will contribute to your future Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court? And I'm going to go back to Chaniel, and then because they've already moved through development of a Juvenile Wellness Court, and I know that Corissa and Santana are still planning. So I'll let Chaniel share, and then we'll go to Corissa and then Santana.
So we actually have a lot of treatment partners in our community. We have the Crystal Creek Lodge, which serves adults and adolescents. The adult inpatient facility, I think, holds 12 beds for males and females. The juvenile, right now, they don't have an inpatient facility. They're more operating like outpatient services. We have Northern Winds Recovery Center, which is a privately owned treatment facility. There's an LAC. They do mental health counseling. Those are people from our community that we also partner with. And then the school-based health clinic, we have partners there that there's 2 LACs, one LAC now in that facility that also provide counseling services for us. And there's a good medicine program in our schools now. It kind of offers, it's more of a prevention project now, but previously they were providing mental health services to kids as well. But all of those places coming together, it's really helped us with our youth and being able to provide them holistic services.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you're able to now connect all of those resources and kind of have that, not easy access, but it's there, it's available, and you can get youth connected with all of those things. So Corissa, I know you're still in planning, but as far as the resources that are going to be integrated into the court, what are you anticipating right now?
So right now we're anticipating with the Quapaw counseling services to be able to use their counseling services as needed. And then also to be able to use them, if we have to do drug testing and stuff like that. With our family services department, we actually also will be able to use a counselor through them as well, depending on the type of case that it is, because they do have an outside counselor that comes in at least 3 times a week, and kind of meets in one of our conference rooms. And then we also, we plan on working with our schools as well, which we've had meetings with. We've had a few meetings with our school systems to try to figure out, what's going to best fit this program, and to get, what programs they have at the school, because we do have a resource officer that is one of our marshals, which is our police department. So he's kind of in there and sees everything. So being able to use that resource is a major one, especially going through our school systems. And I mean, family services and our counseling services are really going to be our biggest resources we use, because with the counseling service, they actually have a list of places if there has to be an in treatment or, an out treatment that they can't do. They have a list of providers that we could possibly use.
Santana, what resources are you all integrating or planning to integrate within your juvenile healing to wellness court?
So we have been partnering with Circle of Life, and they are, I believe, based in a neighboring Pueblo, but they really help us out as far as like counseling. We have a high need for counselors in this area, so they help us out with our adult path to wellness as well as for our youth as well. But now we're experiencing, we need more counselors actually. So because, their schedules are booked and stuff. So we also have access to, there's a Santa Fe Mountain Center that really helps us out when it comes to tribal youth who need those services and families who need those services. There's a Butterfly Center, which is I think an hour away from us. That's an inpatient for youth specifically, who are really struggling with that. And we also we've hired a few in-house counselors as well. So I think we're really lucky to have that. I think we have 3, I believe, like in-house counselors that we can, just help us as far as like when it comes to mental health. So we're really lucky to have that. And we're kind of opening a behavioral health department, which we really hope that it will expand. And the goal for that is to, I think the hope for that is to really just have our own behavioral health building where we can have, host whatever we need, like whether that's individual or family counseling. So we're working on that, but yeah.
So
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Precious.
Sorry, Anna. This is for everybody. So when you first got into this role of program coordinator, how much knowledge do you have of existing resources that you knew you could integrate? And secondly, what do you wish you had that would have made creating these partnerships a little bit easier, or connecting these resources to your program easier?
I can start. I didn't have almost any knowledge, which is crazy. I only knew about our adult Path to Wellness program, really, thinking back. And when I got into this role, I think that was like the first mission, was to say, okay, where are all the resources at? Who can we depend on? Who can we reach out and partner with? And that was part of the planning process as well. And I think the retreats and stuff that, TYRC and OJJP and TLPI have is that we'll go, you get the big sheets of paper and you're just like, okay, list every single thing in your community, like anything you can think of, the police department, the schools, the whatever, mental health places. And so it took a long time for me. It took like probably a year, and I'm still building my knowledge on what the local resources are for just anything, for adults and for youth. So it does take time, but it also takes like initiative on your part to say, okay, I got this person's card, I have this person's email, I have their number, like, let's just call them, leave a message, set up in-person, well, when you can. Obviously we're in this weird time now, but when you can, I feel like face-to-face is the best to really establish a relationship. I would go to meetings where I didn't know anyone, and then I would leave with like an excitement, because like I'd be like, oh, this person's doing what I'm doing. And so now I have this new partnership. So I think what I wish I would have had was just a list of like someone, saying, here you go, here's all their best resources in the community. But unfortunately, I'm the first coordinator for this juvenile program. So you have to do, a lot of the bulk of the work yourself.
Thank you. Corissa, do you feel the same
I do.
in our program?
And it's unique because, like I said, when I came from the state, I'd only heard of the resources that they had. And we all know that the state of Oklahoma, with budgets and everything, their resources aren't that great. And there's only a couple of places that individuals can go. And then when I started working for the tribe, I was like, oh my gosh, the tribe has this, and I've lived in this community most of my life and didn't realize everything that all the 9 tribes in this area had to offer. I mean, I didn't know that there was such things as family services or the Quapaw counseling services. And I mean, and each tribe has their own unique way of dealing with things. So, I mean, it's been kind of a unique thing to sit here and say, the state may have this, but we have so many other resources that we can use to better help the kids in need that need the help.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant when you pulled up your map to specifically point out that Quapaw is nestled with the grouping of, there's about 10 tribes in that northeast corner. So, you're all kind of collaborating with each other on what's available and what resources are there for tribal youth in that area.
And we do have some really great MOUs. I mean, I know our family services, especially like the ICW workers, I mean, they have a meeting every month with each of the tribes to kind of talk about what they're kind of facing and what's going on. So, I mean, there's so many things that, and meetings that we've been able to attend when starting this, just kind of say, hey, there's a lot of different options out there for us on how to handle these and different resources that I never even imagined were possible.
Mm-hmm. Chaniel, same question. What resources in the community, I know you shared some, but contributed to the wellness court?
Yeah, when I first got here, I really didn't know there was that much resources out there for our youth. When we first came on, we were actually housed under a program called Honor Your Life, which is like I think 6 prevention programs all in one building. So that really helped because that program actually really goes out and is really proactive and does a lot of pro-social activities in the community. So that helped me kind of learn where, there was services. But yeah, like Santana said, it was just me taking the initiative and going and meeting with these people and just asking people that are already in the community, where can I go to get help, and where do you guys suggest we go and meet, and where do we need the partners? It was just a lot of coordination with I guess our advisory committee too, so that just bringing people in on a community advisory circle helped me find these people out there in these services. So
I'm glad all of you shared. Precious, that was a good question. The what you wish you had known. I appreciate that. So now we're going to talk a little bit about process. And so, Laura, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I have a question that I think hopefully sets this part up a little more now that we're focusing on like actually dealing with the youth? And I guess it is a similar format to my previous question in that, what did you know about working with youth that had substance use issues, that engaged in delinquent behavior? And how did you seek out more knowledge on how to like understand the adolescent brain so that a lot of the interventions you're doing actually works? And did that increased knowledge help you make changes to your implementation or your planning or implementation process? So I guess that's a 3-part question. I apologize because I can't remember what I asked just now, but yeah, just talk to me about what you knew about youth and how you got to know a little more and how that changed the way you're doing things. I guess we'll go with Chaniel first.
I actually have a bachelor's of social work, and my internship when I was getting my degree was with a program called Friends Forever Mentoring, which serves at-risk youth. It's kind of like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, but it's the Salish and Kootenai tribe, their model of the Big Brother, Big Sister program. So just working with those kids and I guess learning the important role that a mentor can be for a kid is just something I saw. So just building those connections and making sure a kid has, you know, a positive support system. That was something I really learned there, and that kids actually can be these mentors too. You just have to build their self-esteem and kind of help them see that they can change their communities and that they're powerful and that they're in charge too. They can pave the way for futures as well. Did I answer the question? I don't know. I kind of.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Thank you, Chaniel. Santana, Corissa.
Yeah, I'll speak on it. Well, I was actually started as the teen director at the Boys and Girls Club in my community. And it's crazy how it happened. I kind of just fell into it because I wanted a job. That's really what it was. I was like, oh, I just need a job. So I applied. And then I ended up like loving it so much. Like I've just, you know, all the kids who were attending are Pueblo members. So they're like my extended family. And so I started learning about, you know, how am I related to this 6-year-old? Like, oh, it's, you know, my distant cousin on this side or whatever. And so I just started to learn, you know, who they are, and they're so smart and they have so much potential, and, you know, they fight like their brother and sisters. And it was that on its own was just a great experience. And then Judge kind of asked me to step up and, you know, be a part of this other program where we're really focusing on children who, or youth who, and young adults who really need even more support because of whatever's happening at school, in the home, and some trauma that they've been through. And, you know, now they're getting involved with the court, and we don't want this to go any further. So I think it started with just a real connection with the youth in my community first. That's where it started, because you can't do this work unless you genuinely care and want to see the youth succeed. And so I remember when I was a kid, I didn't really have any mentor or main person in my life that I was like, you know, they really inspired me. I had, I think, people along the way, but I think it was just like, you know, our youth who are, you know, troubled, or they have these things they don't want to talk about. Maybe they don't feel like they can depend on anyone. And I think that's our responsibility. And it really challenges the adults to change the way that we look at youth. And then just learning about the adolescent brain. The judge in my community, she's also like a neuroscientist. So she's really passionate about kind of just sharing her knowledge about, you know, we need to be supportive. And I think it was Chaniel who said it, but less punitive and just more supportive, because that's really what they need. And it's not that they're not being held accountable for their actions. It's just, it's a different approach with youth. And so we actually had Jessica Pierce come and visit us, I believe it was like last December, but she really put things into perspective on how we would administer like incentives and sanctions, what that does look like for a youth, because I think our team is so used to running our adult healing to wellness court that I didn't want us to fall back into that model of, okay, because these aren't adults, these are children, so, or youth, sorry. So we need to treat them, you know, as young adults, because they're in that phase where they're not like that young anymore. They are, you know, growing into adulthood. So there is a different approach to that. And we are still learning on what exactly works.
Because each kid that comes through here is going to be different. So what may work for one's not necessarily going to work for the other. When I'm not here working, I coach. I'm head of all the softball for the Quapaw schools for the younger girls in elementary and middle school. So you kind of get to see how the girls will interact with each other and how to, you know, handle them when different situations happen. So it's, you know, it's just knowing that every single case is not going to be the same, and you can't treat every case the same, because one kid may take to something a lot better than another kid, and another kid might be a little bit more defiant because of certain things, of traumas that they've had. So it really is just trying to figure out what's going to be best for each individual juvenile that comes to these programs.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like the two major takeaways from what y'all just said were being a mentor, and that the mentorship and the guidance that you provide should be individualized to each of the youth. So thank you. That's great.
Yeah. I think too that ongoing learning, and then accessing the training and things that are available. So if you are an OJJDP grantee, there's a lot of resources that you can be connected with. And then if you're just interested in wellness court, there's a lot of training that's available. So just knowing that there is support out there if you're just getting started, or if you're interested, there's plenty of us that are available to give you kind of a peek into what you might be getting into if you're trying to start a wellness court. So I know we still have quite a bit of questions, and I know we're coming closer toward, I think we're more than halfway through this session. So we're going to move through some of these questions a little bit quicker, and then I think we have some more substantive things that we can talk about with our guests. So really quickly, how do you all envision that youth will enter into the wellness court? Are you all focusing on pre-disposition, post-disposition? I know we've already had a mention that this is hopefully an intervention program. And then if you're looking at transfer agreements, and I think we've already had some things shared on that. But I will let Chaniel start, and then Corissa, and then Santana.
So our program's a post-plea or post-disposition program. How it works is the family court presenting officer will get the referral or the recommendation, and she'll start the screening process. And then if they do fit the program, she'll offer a plea agreement and to complete the program rather than a sentence. And then if they accept the offer, they'll be transferred to, the case will get transferred to our team for review in a staffing, and we actually will screen them again with our screening tool that the presenting officer also uses. So if they're accepted, they fit the program, they go through an orientation process first. And this is just to let them kind of review a court hearing or observe a court hearing. We go through the handbook with them, just all possible outcomes that can happen while they're in the program, and then the requirements, what their contract will look like. And then I think the last step is they come in and actually observe a hearing. And then after this, that's when they are able to, the family, the guardian, parent, and the kid get to decide. It's kind of our way of due process, letting them kind of choose if this is the right option for them. So once they're accepted, they get a hearing or a hearing scheduled. They can accept or reject the agreement then too. So they actually have a few steps before they're able to actually enter the program. And then once they do their initial hearing, that's when they sign their contract in front of the judge. And then we'll go to another staffing, and kind of based on their intake interview and what we went through with them, they'll kind of help us formulate their individualized plan for treatment, and based on their needs and all of that, their goals. We actually ask them what they want to work towards, and that kind of helps us. So once that's all done, they're transferred to us and they start the program.
So I like that you were talking about giving them empowering them to decide that this is the right program for them. So really giving them that time to decide and then make that commitment, and then having, that due process so they know for sure this is what you're agreeing to, and you're going to take part in all this that's being offered to you. So I think that's a really great way of empowering those youth to make that decision with their family. Chris and Santana, I know that you all are still, working toward implementation. So how do you envision the youth are going to come into the court? And Corissa, you can share, and then Santana, you can share.
Right now, we're looking at a couple different options. With the school, we want to kind of have like a 4 to 5 point contact. So if something happens at the school, they go to either the principal, the superintendent, or the resource officer, and they immediately make a referral with us. Once that referral has been done, then we kind of want to send it off to the prosecutor for them to decide whether or not we want to do something pre-disposition before anything happens, depending on what the charge is. And if it is something that has to be post-deposition, we definitely want to look at all the avenues possible. But we definitely we want to have we don't necessarily want to do a regular tribal court type of situation for a case that, because truancy and vaping is something we're looking at. So looking at those cases a little bit different than the drug and alcohol cases. And we definitely are looking for transfer cases. Like I said earlier, one of our biggest goals is to get over to the DA's office in Ottawa County, start there first to see whether or not they're going to be willing to transfer or refer cases to us. There's been a lot of issues with certain things in Oklahoma because of a certain case that had just finished through the Supreme Court. So the Ottawa County is doing a few odd things. So we want to get with them to see maybe if they'll just go ahead and just do some MOU to transfer all those cases over here as well.
Santana?
Okay, so yeah, I think we're anticipating kind of each youth that gets into the program, kind of a different situation with each one, because they're all unique and each charge, will be most likely unique. And it's kind of, we aren't seeing, like 15 and 16-year-olds offending on the same level as like a 19-year-old would. And our program does go up to 20-year-olds. So if it's like a 17 to 20-year-old and they do, they're taken in for a DWI or something, that's going to be a post-disposition where, kind of like Chaniel was saying, like they would, complete the program instead of getting those charges, and so we kind of help out in that way. If it's something like that's a referral through the school, they will have to go through whatever, that's kind of our agreement with the school, is that, the school really will, if they feel like, YPTW is where they should be referred, then we love that. But it's kind of the school will present YPTW and give that as an option to the parent. So there, I think, a lot of moving parts here, just depending on, how old the kid is, what the charge is, what kind of situation. I think, like Corissa said, just with getting caught like with marijuana at school or vaping, that's going to be, obviously, it's going to be taken differently as if, they get a DWI. So we'll work with them for, not getting them charges the best that we can, I think.
Thank you. So Laura, we can go to the next slide, and we've shared this before, but there's many different entry points. And so that's what each of these speakers has just shared, the different points in time where youth will come into the Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. And as you can see, there's many points in time. So early intervention opportunities, options to bring youth in if you are in, an area where you're going to be looking at referrals into the court from a local county partner. And then if you are able to bring in youth because you're reservation based, opportunities to have pre and post disposition entry into the court. So many opportunities to bring them in and provide those services. So I want to make sure we get to some of our questions that give some insight into how you've worked with your team. So Laura, I think we can go ahead and move to slide 23. I want to talk about accountability and how you all are working on that. And then, because I know we've talked about coordinating services. So supporting youth accountability. Chaniel, I guess I would love to hear how you all look at monitoring. And I know you were saying you serve such a wide area. So if any issues have come up related to monitoring and supporting that accountability when you're serving such a large area.
So monitoring, we actually do random drug testing 2 times a week. But just making sure kids, we actually give them the responsibility of calling into our, it's an IVR system, interactive voice response system called Cordant Sentry. So they call and it will tell them, they have an ID number that they put in and it will tell them if they have a drug test or not. And once they get the notification, they are required to be at our building to do their tests by the end of the day. But they are responsible for calling that hotline. It's completely randomized too, so that helps us as the probation officer not having to constantly call and tell someone they need a drug test, and making sure it's fair to all of our clients. They do have to complete nightly phone check-ins. So if somebody's not able to get into town for a drug test, or they're having transportation issues, we have a court vehicle that we are able to use. So we will go out to the community, pick the kid up, or our probation officer will test on site. We do give a little bit of leniency towards other communities, or the outlying communities, because the weather is super bad and winters are hard and long here. So it's just about connecting with them on the phone and being partners with the guardians and the parents, whoever's taking care of them. And then they also have a checklist that they are responsible for, that they, so when they do go to a meeting or have a phone interview or telehealth call, they do have to make sure that those are verified and signed. So they're actually responsible for that form. That kind of helps us, they keep track of them, and that they're actually going to their appointments. But it also keeps them responsible and has, makes them accountable and responsible for their own progress, and that they're getting to their appointments. And then incentives, we actually do like the fishbowl method. We're actually working on this right now. We actually haven't been able to do it because of COVID, but every negative drug test, or non-positive, I guess, they'll get a ticket, or if they make it to their appointments, our partners will have little tickets that they give them. So it's kind of like an instant incentive. So that helps, the behavior is instantly rewarded, the good behavior. So that's something we're looking at. And our sanctions are graduated sanctions, so they increase in intensity as the behavior increases. They're more tailored to what they're doing at the moment and what their behaviors are. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
I think you hit it. We were talking about what processes will you include as part of the case management. So I think you talked about those. So Laura, we can then go to slide 25. I want to talk about if for those that are interested in developing a wellness court and the investment of time. I think you guys have already shared about that. But as far as coordinating with your team, you maybe share one success and one challenge, and you can either do the challenge first or the success second, or however you want to do it. But something so far that you felt has been successful and something that has been challenging. And Carissa's smiling, so I'll let Corissa go first.
I will say this has probably been one of the most difficult things to do, because there's not this set of rules to go by, and there's nothing that says, start here, do this, do that. It's just kind of just knowing where to start and how to start it. Because I think that was our biggest problem with us, is kind of just sitting around going, well, I don't even know who to call or what to do. And it was, well, do I call this person? No, that probably won't have anything to do with it, so let's wait. And kind of figuring out what our team base was going to be. I mean, that's been the biggest thing, I think. And we have a really unique set of individuals that I'm really glad that they're on our team. And we have our judge that comes and she sits in the meetings, and she's part of the planning, and she wants to, to help. We have several marshals, which are police officers, that want to be involved. Our resource officer is one of the best. I mean, he sees the kids day in, day out. He knows what it's like. So when we asked him, what are the things that you see and you face every day, it was easy for him just to rattle off, a few things. But I mean, these are important programs to establish in courts. But it is one of those things of like, okay, you have your narrative, you have this packet, where in the world do you start? And I think that has been our biggest issue of trying to figure out where do we want to begin and how do we want to mold this to best fit what's important for us around this area. Because we are, I mean, it is strange because we are checkered board, we don't necessarily have a reservation, so not all cases can come through here, even though we would like for all cases to come through here. And I think our biggest issue that we're going to have is the states just kind of relinquishing some of their duties and letting us take charge, and us saying we have the ability to hear these cases and we can do this. Just let us try it and let us do it, so we can take some work off of you and put that work onto us and show you that these courts around here that are unique can take on these big cases that need to be taken.
Thank you. Chaniel, a success or a challenge in building your team?
I guess the biggest challenges we face building our team is just keeping team members and different partners engaged in coming to meetings. That's our biggest thing, is sometimes we have a lot of people that don't make it to I know they're busy and it's just crazy trying to work out a staffing meeting and with all of their schedules. So that's kind of been a challenge for us. There's also a lot of turnover in a lot of our treatment centers, or some of the counselors might get transferred to a different department. So there's kind of been a lack of consistency with counselors. So once a kid gets, familiar and kind of comfortable with a counselor, that counselor is no longer there. Or they aren't coming to meetings, and so we're not getting a lot of the information we need as a team on the clinical side. Or just maybe even a school partner might not show up. I guess successes is most of our team is pretty motivated, and just being flexible with those partners who aren't able to make the meeting has, I think, helped keep them engaged, and just making sure you reevaluate your processes and not being so set in stone. So if there is something you can do to communicate more with a team member, that helps. So DIMS, it's a cloud-based system. I know most of you might have heard of it. That actually is helping us. A lot of our counselors don't have access or don't have the time to come to our meetings, so they can actually record the progress on DIMS, and all of our team members are able to be notified immediately. So that actually helps. So getting that system was actually something that really helped our team communicate, and just, I think, keeping, a lot of the time a challenge can be your team might not see that you are helping. There's successes in your program that you don't always have to focus on graduation or keeping somebody sober or clean for this many weeks. There's other things you can look at. Has this kid improved their attendance? They've actually been in counseling. They've never been in counseling before. They know how to access it now. So that you just got to look at those kinds of things and constantly remind your team what we're doing good, and not to focus just on the graduation piece.
Thank you. Santana, I know we're coming right up against the time, so just sharing one challenge and one success that you've experienced so far in building up your team and working towards the planning and implementation of your court.
Yeah, so when I hear you say challenge, I'm like, okay, so everything. No, it is really a challenging field of work just in general, but I think our initial challenge was really getting like momentum and support from the other programs in the community, because they've been, in existence for a lot longer than our program. So it's sometimes hard to get other programs out of like the groove that they've been in for so long. And it's kind of, you have to establish that rapport with your partners in the community and say, no, like, this is legitimate, let's get like the PD on board. Let's get the Family and Children Services on board. And so that takes a lot of consistency, and it can be discouraging sometimes when people, like Chaniel said, aren't showing up to the meetings. So that definitely is a challenge. And then obviously everyone hit a challenge when COVID came, because, it felt like everything just dropped off a cliff. And so we are slowly but surely kind of building our momentum up again with that. I think a challenge to me is really being able to move your plans and your whole planning process and convert it into the actual implementation. Because I think that's the difference between a program that's going to be successful or a program that's not, going to have a really hard time, is, are the plans you're making realistic? And so just being open to failure, because if you're not afraid to fail, you can't succeed. So it's like you have to try, things have to fail for you to realize what the solution will be. So just our team is great though. I think our huge success is that our team is really good at communicating. We have a really passionate team, and I'll give my supervisor a shout out, but Jill Campoli is an amazing, she's an awesome person, and she does a really good job about, because if the team isn't cohesive, if the team isn't, communicating correctly, then there's no way we're going to be able to go outside of ourselves and really help the community and help the youth. So just communication is a huge thing, and being honest with your coworkers.
Thank you. So I know we're at time. This has been such a great conversation today. And fortunately, we are able to stay connected with all of these speakers. So if there's questions we didn't get to, I think we can do some follow-up in some other ways via the TYRC. So I am going to let Precious share some closing announcements. And I just want to say thank you, if you're listening today, for being here, for being present. And I really want to say thank you to all of our speakers for sharing and the insights and experiences. So thank you again to all three of these ladies. Appreciate you very much. And Precious, I'll let you close us out.
All righty. Thank you for attending session D3, Community Coordination, Planning and Implementing the Tribal Juvenile Healing to Wellness Court. And if at any time you are unable to join a session that you're interested in, you may find recordings of all enhancement training sessions at enhancementtraining.org. And thank you, and enjoy the last day of the training. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.